Ms. Maloney said yes. That's our final.
All right. Well, in all, 29 people.
I have
29
also.
people voted on the poll this morning.
Odd number, lovely.
Yeah. So of the 29 people, and of course, just in case you're wondering what our poll was, it is: do you think that the government should revisit the increase in fuel prices? 16 of you said no, you don't think they should revisit it. 13 of you said yes. I don't know if Paul, you got those exact same results.
Yes, we are.
We are coinciding.
All in sync.
Great. So for a lot of it was even. It was 50-50. I mean, 50%, 50%. So it was pretty much split in the middle. But of course, the no's zoomed ahead that the government should not reconsider it, which is a kind of a strange thing. You would think people may want
on this show, really?
Yeah. What does that mean?
On this show? Okay.
No, man.
Are you sure?
No, man. So there's some people.
The vote is quite what I expected.
It is.
Yeah.
Good morning, Mr. Riley. Dexter Riley is the CEO of Unipet, and he's joined us this morning. Good morning, Mr. Riley. How are you? You're still muted.
Oh, you're on mute. Unmute. There he goes.
Yeah, we have that problem sometimes.
Yeah, there you go.
Sorry
Here we
that,
go.
gentlemen.
All right,
Sorry
good
about that.
morning.
Hi,
Yeah,
good
that's
morning.
all right.
Good morning, Paul. Good morning, Steve.
Recording
Richard.
in progress.
Morning, morning.
Wednesday as well. Morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you for having Unipet.
What's the you on our poll?
Well,
You take a deep breath there, boy.
it is useful information. And, people are contemplating this actively. And some people have, different perspective based on the information available to them and based on the challenges in front of them. So I understand it. But
So
I think
again, the
there is a
question, what
sense-
say you, Mr. Riley? What is your vote to the poll?
or my vote?
Yeah, do you think
No.
that government should reconsider the fuel increases?
No,
You should not reconsider.
you should not reconsider.
But let's start off there because I know gas station operators would have had problems in terms of the range between what they're allowed to charge and how much they were paying for the fuel. And I know I'm stating it badly. I'm saying it's that range, but that percentage that you were allowed to charge, and it was supposed to have changed, and you were supposed to go into a more of a free market situation where one gas station could charge more if they wish than another, and people could shop around. Has that happened as yet, or are you still in a restricted mode?
Well, as of today, it has not happened. What we have to see, we have to wait and see the details of the order that's going to be pricing order is going to be released to effect the change, the current change, to understand the fullness of what's going to happen going forward. But it has not happened to date as yet.
How is the present pricing structure affecting your margins, your business model?
So it has had the industry face some liquidity challenges because taxes, as you may recall, in 2016, increased by 300%. Just to give you some context, over one day, taxes as an industry would have probably moved from around 17 million to 50 million. So that has put a lot of pressure on the industry, as well as just the general inflationary costs that we have had to bear, given that we are dangerous goods industry, and there's a lot of money spent in health and safety, in security, and in assets. So it has been challenging. However, I must add that following the campaign that we all very familiar with, that we have had earlier in the last 5 years, we got an adjustment in July 2020 in the margin, which did improve circumstances, but it still is very challenging.
I know the pandemic, when there was the severe lockdown and restricted movements, I know service stations would have felt a bit of that pinch because people were just not moving around and gas sales and diesel sales were down. Would that be accurate? And how did that affect your general last 3 quarters or so, or 4 quarters?
Yeah. So what we have seen both in 2020 and 2021, there's a time when volume went down by 60%. Of course, that's in the height of the lockdown. But overall, at the end of the year, volumes were down by 20%, and still have not fully recovered. And that has put some pressure on the earnings of the industry, of course, because it's based on the margin. And once the margins are fixed and they're small, so once volumes go down, yes, you'll find that there is some financial effect on the industry, adverse effect on the industry, the retailers and the wholesalers.
And also in terms of the operations generally, I know many of the businesses, you were one who had to become quite innovative. Unipet is not a gas station operator, it's a service station where you sell gas and diesel, but you also have Quick Shop, well, not Quick Shop, that's the other brand. You have, sorry about that, you have other services that you offer in terms
A
of
convenience store, yeah.
Convenience store.
Yes. So, being the private sector player in the industry, we are a catalyst of change, and we always focus on how can we innovate to provide better services for our customers, and also how can we provide leadership to improve the circumstances of all the players in the industry, all the retailers across the networks, and in particular our network. And we have collaborated with them in terms of finding these solutions and working together to make it better for our customers and for them. So we have had a very strong board with great leadership that has supported management in driving innovation and supported management taking risk and investment in finding new solutions to existing problems. And that kind of feeds straight into our leadership in terms of the clean energy. And you would have seen in our Brentwood station, that was the first station in the Caribbean that would have had a EV charger and solar panels installed on it to power the station. And since then, we have added 2 more. So we have 3 locations that's available to the public. And in 2022, we're going to be adding a number more. Significant number more.
Well, that's great because, you'd think because EV chargers take a little while, even though the technology is improving, you want to have a place where people can actually go to pass that time away, which is where your convenience store comes in. And so I suppose it can be more and more integrated in terms of EV chargers and that wait time that people who have EVs take to charge up their vehicles. So that's always a consideration. Is that part of your plan?
Certainly. And what we intend to do is to keep on adding other services so that as people charge their vehicles, they can keep their time productive. And so those, this asks the population stay tuned as we roll those innovative, exciting things out in the future. Because we do understand that the environment is changing and fuel is becoming more and more expensive. And clean energy is something that's important for the next generation and even our generation as well. So we are taking initiative with the support and the leadership of our board to make that bold step.
Mr. Raleigh, you said earlier on you do not think the government should reconsider the fuel price increases. Why? And how will that increase affect your business?
Very good question, Paul. What we recognize is that this is a difficult time. It's a difficult time for everyone. And what has to happen is that we have to find a way to share the burden and to collaborate, to work together to find a solution to move the economy forward. And if we take a second and look at the situation the government is facing, at current prices, subsidy could end up being between $2 billion to $2.5 billion at the end of this year. That's a big jump from $700 million last year. And what that means is that they will have to redirect funds from programs that are needed, social programs, whether it is hospital, investment in the hospital, in salaries, in employment. And that's a decision that they have to make if it is they decide not to adjust the subsidy issue. We do recognize that our consumers will also be facing some challenge with that as well. In fact, the last couple of years, the COVID lockdowns and more recent times, Ukraine war has put pressure on inflation and supply chain prices and efficiency, etc. And we're seeing that the consumers have to face increasing prices, and it is difficult. So therefore, we recognize and agree that an approach that is a transition where the government didn't remove the subsidy completely, but is sharing the burden with the public to make sure and protect other key interests that they will have, as the approach. And I think that's a good approach. But we also have to think about the sector, the downstream sector. As I indicated earlier, our taxes went up significantly. And every time there's an increase in prices at the pump, our taxes increase because of the Green Fund and Business Levy. And with the current proposed change in prices in the pump, we will face an additional 21% increase as a sector. That's $10 million more. So within a few years, we have moved from $17 million to about $60 million in taxes with fixed margins that have been moved probably in a decade before what we have seen in recent times. And they were already thin, and margins are low across the world. So that we look forward to a responsible management of this change that takes into consideration all the stakeholders, so that we could continue to work together to find solutions to move the economy forward and keep people.
So do you expect that when the state raises the prices, because you said your taxation is going to go up by 21% or to 21%? So I'm saying, is it that you expect that they're going to actually include at the point that they're raising the fuel prices, the relaxation of that margin that petroleum dealers have to deal with, and allow you all to float completely and compete completely? Do you expect that as part of your as part of the government's rollout on April 19th?
There's a pricing order that is issued, Richard, and that hasn't been issued as yet in terms of this particular announcement of change in prices. But what we do hope for is a responsible way of managing that change. And that may not look like a complete relaxation of the margins and the settlement prices, but that is something that we will embrace. However, what we're saying is that it should have some consideration for the sector so that we can fund that increase in taxes, so that we could fund the commensurate increases in costs and operating costs as well. Because as I said earlier, we all have to share the burden and we all will be affected, and we all have to be supported in some way so we'll continue as a going concern.
But surely, I assume that the petroleum dealers would have been making some sort of effort in terms of lobbying the government with regard to that issue. I know you all have been lobbying for years, and it seemed to have fallen on deaf ears for many years until there was some sort of traction in terms of a relaxation of those margins. Is there some aggressive lobbying taking place now for that to be included in the pricing order?
Yeah, and you're correct. We have, and I do know, I'm aware that the Petroleum Dealers Association, we all continue to lobby the respective ministries and to communicate with them and to collaborate with them. So we will seek our audience again. And we have never really stopped the dialogue. It's just that we have changed the format.
Would it be correct to say the margins, based on how your business model is operating, it'll affect both your top and bottom lines, but a lot of it also has to do with your volume of sales in a competitive market. How is that disaggregated, given that, well, you are the next major player with one other major competitor in the country?
Well, what we have seen is, as a result of the lockdown, we were able to hold our market share as well as the other player.
Which is what, if you know it now, what's your market share?
Our market share 29%.
So are there plans to try to increase that, or is that under a particular regulatory framework governed by the state in terms of more service stations to try and affect that gross revenue statement?
So we are always looking for opportunities to expand our services locally, but it has to be taken into consideration the environment and the economic environment and the opportunities that exist. But we always look forward for opportunities to increase access to our services. We believe it's a different experience and that people should have that option.
So are there plans or
Yes. The simple answer is yes. We always have plans and looking for opportunities, except that what we have to do at this point, Richard, is to take in consideration the change in prices and the economic environment and the transition away from liquid fuel to EV charging as a form of refueling.
I'm surprised that your market is 29%. I thought it was more, given that, but this is just my personal experience, that the Unipet brand, well, I had a bad experience with your competitor. had my truck many years ago, and quality of fuel. I'm not going down the road of disparaging them, but the double fuel filtration is what I kind of look forward to at Unipet service stations. Have you found that your customers have been asking for more service stations?
Yes, that is correct. They're always asking for more locations. This is a capital intensive business, and operating cost is intensive. So that limits in terms of the rate in which we can expand, given we have a fixed margin. But we're always looking for opportunities to bring the services to new locations. In recent times, we took the business to Arima and was well received. We have a very good partner there. And we're always looking for new locations where we could make it available to the consumer.
You don't have a convenience store in Arima, though.
Not every location can have one, Richard.
You just get both there, you know that, right?
I know. But I'm trying to take it nicely. I'm trying to take it smoothly.
Your competitor does, though, eh?
Yeah, and we have points of differentiation. And probably that may be one, and there are other things that we would bring that customers value.
All right, gentlemen, I just want to come in here for 1 second to give a traffic update. If you're southbound on Uriah Butler Highway by Weimar, which is right before Monroe Road, there is a two-car accident that which one of the vehicles has burst into flames. A lamppost is on 2 lanes, and police have cordoned off the area and asking drivers to go to the extreme right lane. So 2 lanes are completely blocked. That is southbound Uriah Butler Highway by Weimar River. Please take note, and they expect police has just closed off that 2 lanes so you could pass through.
Joking with these accents. Mr. Riley, is it, just from my understanding, all operators buy their raw material from the state, is that correct?
The fuel, yes, from one supply. The state has a supplier, and that is governed by legislation.
Has the closure of Petrotrin affected you at all?
No, I think PARA did a great job in managing the transition. Of course, initially, there were some adjustments that we all had to make, but quickly we had a very good experience with PARA.
What's the greatest challenge facing your industry right now? I mean, margins are fixed. Competition is steep. Russia-Ukraine war sending up the price of fuel globally. It just seems like we have very little wiggle room.
Yes, the biggest challenge is what we have been articulating as a sector over the last 6 or 7 years with respect to the pricing model. We do recognize that an open market approach allows innovation. It allows prices to be competitive for different players to provide an opportunity for customers to have a different experience, etc. So what we think the biggest challenge is really the pricing model needs to be addressed.
What about those who say that is to protect the consumer? Because even in an open market situation in a small country, and this has happened in other sectors, players can get together and decide, well, we want to fix the lowest margin, the lowest market price at X, and the consumer is left paying more at the pump because the players can get together privately or publicly and say, well, it's an open market now, we can decide what our lower fixed point is.
Yes, and that trust and confidence has to be there, and we take that seriously. We recognize that fuel prices are open in most places of the world, and that's not the experience. And prices in almost every other sector in Trinidad and Tobago it's open, and that's not the experience. Competitive forces kick in. We pride ourselves in being ethical. We have actually already developed a pricing policy and strategy to make sure that we're competitive. And at the center of our policy is the interest and the welfare of the consumer. And that has always been Unipet focus. So we understand that concern, but quickly the consumer will understand that we would not support that, and we have confidence in the rest of the players that wouldn't happen. And
So if the government liberalizes all of those issues and makes it very much an open field in terms of competition, wouldn't that draw in other players besides Unipet and NP? You may have Shell coming in, I don't know. And there may be other players that come in with gas stations like there are in the rest of the Caribbean. Are you, as Unipet, concerned about that? Or do you prefer it's restricted to just two players?
No, we welcome competition. Competition drives innovation. Richard, even though there are two players and two brands, there's always competition because there's substitution. However, if a new players would enter the market, it will only drive innovation and it will manage fears that people have around prices, etc. So we welcome that. That is not a concern for us. In fact, we see it as a good thing. However, what you may have to understand is that fuel business all over the world is a low margin business and very capital intensive to get into, and the operating cost is high. So even though the market is open, it doesn't necessarily mean they will have a lot of players wanting to come in. They probably will have some entry, but it will be measured and controlled, particularly on the cusp of an energy transition to renewable energy and clean energy offerings. So there's a number of different factors you have to take into consideration.
So just to pull a name out of the hat, you don't mind a Massey gas coming into the market?
Paul, I've learned not to be tempted.
I'm being very mischievous there.
I know.
I want to go back to the issue that Richard raised about the EV cars and the hybrid cars, and given the pronouncement by the finance minister and the government about moving toward that sort of regime more. About Super Bowl. Look at the Super Bowl commercials and you see what's coming in the next 4 or 5 years in Trinidad, Tobago, and around the world. If there were 15 Super Bowl commercials, there were 8 hybrid cars, electric cars commercials, which means that's the direction the world is going. While oil and gas will be a mainstay for a while, the world is transitioning quite quickly. Do you see that announcement by the finance minister and the government as an indication that Unipet and other players, but we're talking to you, the CEO of Unipet, has to get ready for people buying more hybrid cars and EV cars to supply that market that may rise exponentially? Because I know I have contacts in the car companies and orders for those cars are significantly up in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes, it is. And we think that's a welcoming thing. Our preparation for this change has preceded that announcement. We recognize that change was coming, and we will put things in place so that we can give the customer that experience, because that has to be managed properly as well from a refueling perspective. And there are a lot of issues that we understand that will emerge in the society as we transition there, and we put things in place so that our customers can have a good experience. But we welcome that commitment from the government and that initiative.
Do you expect an expansion? Because one thing that this pandemic has showed me that businesses have to learn to pivot quickly. You pivoted quickly by introducing doubles at one of your service stations, which it might seem like a simple thing, but understanding the culture and the customer needs and responding quickly is one of the things that agile businesses do very well. Do you see the expansion of those sorts of retail services even wider? While your core business is fuel, I'm sure that part of your business model is maybe adding more and more. Is it adding more and more to your revenue base?
Well, we have plans of introducing some exciting retail convenience store initiatives in the market. That it's just too early
Just
for me
bust
to
the
get.
mark, no, Dexter. Just bust the
Yeah,
mark.
I just want to bust the mark for right now, but stay tuned. Stay tuned. It's
You keep
exciting.
saying stay
It's
tuned.
different.
Give us a better hint than the classic CEO response. Stay tuned for exciting, innovative experiences coming soon to Unipet service stations nationwide. We will wow the market with products and service ranges that will pique you and entice you. I know I write the commercial, so I know. So
Paul, you just took all the words out of my mouth. No, you see, what we don't want to do, Paul and Richard, is to announce things before we're ready, because once we do that, the appetite for it is going to be there. And that just need to be responsible. But the simple answer to your question is, yes, we do recognize that the model has to change, business model has to change, and we need to bring innovative ways in terms of generating new revenues to replace the fuel revenues and margins, but also to add value to the customer in different ways. And that's where we have been doing a lot of investment and research on. And we ought to put a tight build in terms of production offerings that we hope to roll out before the end of this year.
I will tell you, I have one complaint about Unipet. I wonder if I should say it publicly. But you're the CEO, so, and maybe you have no control over it, is the space of the service stations. And I know that's a product of land acquisition or property acquisition. I use the one in St. Augustine a lot, and I mean, very often you're kind of in the road waiting to go into the service station because of the limited space of the compound. Yes,
that goes back to the history of how Unipet was formed and what Unipet is about. Unipet was formed by the dealers. You remember, we would have probably shared recently our founding father, Mr. Romani, and then we have another founding member, Dr. Ari, who passed recently. And they were operators of small stations that wanted to bring innovation and felt that they needed to do that by forming something different. So you find that a number of smaller operators who got together and formed Unipet. And those who actually legacy locations have the option of choosing the network and becoming part of the network. And that's why it evolved that way. But when we had the opportunity to do something new, like the Brentwood experience, we addressed that. And our Lady Hills experience, we addressed that. But it's really around the history of the business. But we really appreciate, customers like yourself who work with that and to support our business. And we thank you for that.
That is like the perfect CEO response, eh?
Oh my God.
Would you be willing to take some calls, Mr. Riley? I'm sure audience would be
certainly
having questions. The numbers are, this man have where you train Harvard or what?
All right, the call 222-8255, 612-8255, and those in North America, 866-525-1099. All right, that's our numbers, of course, our message board as usual.
Maybe we should make you the junior minister of energy. That was politically correct. Yes? I was a junior minister. Next time people say I'm trying to oust the minister of energy, the first minister. Anyway, we're taking your calls now. Our guest is CEO of Unipet service stations, Mr. Dexter Riley. We're talking energy prices and, of course, fuel costs expected to go up as of April 19th, the same day school reopens. A poll this morning was neck and neck for a while, but interestingly enough, our anecdotal poll said that most people don't think the government should reconsider, which is quite interesting to me. I guess the news was coming because the government had signaled for a while that they were moving in the direction, and this was supported by the business chambers, of reducing the fuel subsidy over time.
Certainly.
Because of the cost to the state.
Yes.
Any calls, Can?
Nothing given to me as yet.
So well, in that case, in closing, what can we expect? You said innovation is coming soon. Can we at least get a timeline?
For 2022, the end of 2022.
Wow.
No, we operate in a regulated environment, Paul, and
I understand.
Therefore, we do have always full control of timelines.
Absolutely. You have to wait on the slow machinery of the state sometimes too.
Ease of doing business, Paul. What are you talking about? The minister said the ease of doing business is going to be phenomenal. Well, I'm using words that she didn't use. I don't think she's ever used the word phenomenon.
I don't think she can use the word phenomenon. Let's leave that alone. Let's not drag Mr. Riley into that controversy. Mr. Riley, thank you for being
Thank you. You're very kind.
Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate
Let's
your
hope
time.
you get a convenience store in Arima soon.
All right. Well, gentlemen, before Mr. Riley goes, I do have a couple of calls coming through, so let's grab them. Good morning, caller. Where are you calling from?
Hi, good morning. I'm calling from La Joqueta.
Right. Go ahead.
I don't have a question for Mr. Riley, but I regularly patron the St. Augustine station. I just want to commend them. I think the staff is always so helpful. I've seen them change person's tires, helping them with the air.
Mm-hmm.
I even noticed they've brought their alcohol selection outside on the floor just to give a better experience. So I think I saw them paint the station recently. So that station in particular has had a big lift recently. So I just want to commend them on that, and hopefully we see Unipet and the other stations continue to grow and provide innovation and quality for the consumers.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All the best to you.
Thank you.
All right. Any more calls coming through? We could grab a couple of calls come through quickly, as we have limited time for Mr. Riley.
Any plans to go up the islands?
Yes, you may have seen an article where we actively pursuing Guyana. And we have gotten a very good reception there. People are familiar with the experience that we offer in Trinidad, and they look forward for us bringing innovation.
May I ask the rhetorical question? Why Guyana?
It's a Caribbean territory that we value.
But there's several other Caribbean. Is it that Guyana is certainly seeing a resurgence of its economy? Is that clearly why the opportunity lies there?
We had a partner, Paul, in Guyana long before the resurgence. And it was just a matter, again, time in terms of pushing through the application for the license. It's imminent. We have had a number of the stages successfully completed. So it does coincide with the resurgence of the economy, and it makes better for our ability to provide innovation and quality of service. But that wasn't necessarily the driver. We always had a vision of going regional, and it just takes time. Business takes time.
All right. We do have another call. Good morning.
Yeah, morning, everybody. Richard, Ragoobarsingh, everybody. Morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, morning, Mr. Patrick.
I was now listening to TV6, I believe, just out there, and they was asking the head of the chambers in Sadi Grande, right?
Mm-hmm.
About the gas prices, and if the government had, what they could have do? She said they couldn't do nothing. That was the reason. He said they couldn't do nothing. They had to raise that price. And Sister Tishara, Miss Tishara, yesterday, she said the same thing. So they asked them, what was the timing to raise? She said, well, that they had no special time. But it have other people think otherwise, as I asked just now, what they should do with the gas prices. So you don't know who talking the truth, or everybody look at the thing differently. Ragoobarsingh?
Yeah, well, a lot of economists would say that it has to go up because of the price of oil. I think the government had an excellent opportunity when the price of oil was low, where the effect would have been less if you allowed it to you allowed the market price to float, so to speak, at that point, because people were actually paying more for premium than the regular market at one point in Trinidad, because the subsidy was virtually removed on premium, and the price was so low.
What else did on CNN last night that Putin going in a different phase of a war, so you might see the gas prices go up more again.
Yeah, and if it really skyrockets, and those increases will go up again too. In Trinidad, I don't think the state will have any choice.
And she says a worldwide thing. We can't get away from that.
Yep.
So I don't know.
But you can get away from it if you have enough money to subsidize, but we don't.
Well,
I think that's the basic issue.
Yeah. Biden released some reserves, so price drop there in America, but we have no reserve to release yet. All right.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Patrick. Mr. Riley, Andre is asking, do gas stations benefit from any tax or customs duty incentives?
No.
There you go, Andre. No.
Y'all are more penalized than
It's a heavily regulated sector, very heavily regulated sector.
I can say it for you. Y'all are more penalized. I know you wouldn't want to use that word.
I'll probably say well articulated, Richard.
All right. Any more calls? We'll squeeze a call or two in. 222-8255, 612-8255. We do have the CEO of Unipet, Mr. Dexter Riley, online with us this morning.
Any plans
right?
to open any new service stations in the next couple quarters?
Yes. We are actively finalizing some plans. So the network will probably expand. But again, it's difficult to announce timelines when you're very regulated. So once we have regulations issues resolved, we will communicate. But
I know it's
yes.
a function of market scanning, but really there is a risk complaint that, well, we don't get service stations, but I know it's also a function of operating cost. And if you do a market scan and you don't have the volume, it doesn't make sense because it's not going to be sustainable in that area. Is that kind of how you rationalize it? And Unipet is in Tobago, right? Yeah, Unipet is in Tobago.
Right. So yes, and that is why we said earlier that open market is better, because even if in a rural area the price is slightly higher, it's still cheaper for the consumer that has to travel, drive to get gas, burn gas to get gas, and burn back to go back, to their home, etc. The spread in terms of the elevated cost, if it is the ad-free margins and prices, those are the kind of benefits people will see. And that's why I said that only in time the confidence and the trust in the model will show up, because there will be benefits to the consumer. It's not just benefits to the sector alone. There'll be benefits for the government, the consumer, and the sector as well.
You know, one of the things I have to commend you also on that St. Augustine branch. I remember when the finance minister made the announcement, trainees love to rush when they hear gas price increases. They didn't hear April 19th there. They just hear fuel prices increasing and they rush to the service station. We have this strange phenomenon. If we hear we're going to have a lockdown, we rush for toilet paper. We buy out all the toilet paper. Like, we don't know where we get toilet paper. And on that day, there was a rush in St. Augustine, and the security came out and was helping to direct traffic, and I found that very commendable to ease the because that's a kind of congested area with Lakshmi girls and the credit union opposite and stuff. And I thought it was very commendable that the company took the opportunity to help to alleviate the traffic in that area. So,
but Paul, you were part of the rush too, then.
I was just driving past me. I was just
that's the anecdotal evidence.
I was actually going to go, and when I saw the line from UE going in there, I said, no, there's no need to rush. Get rational. It is April 19th. Take your time, and you will get fuel tomorrow. So yes, there was a somehow knee-jerk reaction in myself also for some strange reason. Yes, I admit that. Mr. Riley, thank you very much for being with us this morning.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.
All right. All the best to you.
Thank you
Thank you so much for being on the Power Breakfast Show and Power 102 Digital.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity. All the best to you guys.
All the best to you. Be
We
safe.
need to tell Richard's wife that the app is working perfectly. The streaming is, we have the top location, 71% of our listeners and viewers are from Trinidad Tobago. Second, the US at 17%. And guess where's third? Cyprus. So good morning to our listeners in Cyprus this morning. Followed by Canada, the United Kingdom, Barbados, Switzerland, China. Good morning, China. Bahamas, and 10 other. So those are the top 10 locations where we are streaming to profoundly this morning. Good morning, Cyprus. And Switzerland. And China.
Cool data set there, Paul. I'm impressed.
We have high-end demographics.
A cool data set there. I'm impressed.
Good morning, Ruben. All right. Cyprus, of all places. Interesting data information. And he says everything's working fine. He checked the back end. He's the
Mrs. R will deal with Mrs. R is going
Richard, just buy the girl.
Mrs.
phone.
R
Buy
is
a new
going
phone.
I'm going to
Buy a
deal
new
with.
phone.
You deal with it. Deal with whatever complaint that she
You
has.
using 3 phones and the woman have a old phone? Come on.
I have one phone that has
Anyway,
fallen so many.
he
I'm
wanted
afraid
to
to
have
show
a
it.
phone, so
I,
she can't call the outside man.
it has fallen so many times. It has fallen so many times. I'm like, okay, you fall again. I don't even bother. I say, once you continue to work, once when I pick you up, the screen lights up. I say, okay, you're good to go.
There's an interesting case I wanted to discuss after the news, which involves a 26-year-old Texan woman who had a self-induced abortion and has been charged.
Right.
I just find it astounding. And of course, the abortion rights activists are up in arms. This is always a controversial topic. Abortion will always be a controversial topic. Because then the discussion about the mother's rights over her body versus the right of the fetus to live, and it's always, but I think it's always a healthy discussion to have.
Well, it's always a controversial topic in countries that are predominantly religious.
True.
Rather than scientific.
Which is most of the world.
No, Europe doesn't have this big controversy about abortion.
So you think Europe is not as religious?
They absolutely are not as religious as the United
England,
States.
2 churches. Spain.
They're absolutely not as religious,
When they
fundamental.
conquer land in the name of the church. Christopher Columbus when they
Can I finish my sentence? They are absolutely not as religious as the United States in terms of the politics and the division along those lines.
Yeah, they separate politics from religion more than the U.S. The U.S. politics is heavily religious.
It mix up like a giant callaloo.
The Bible Belt
bitter tasting callaloo
are so powerful because that Bible Belt is a huge voting block.
Yep. And where is Texas? Smack in the middle of the Bible Belt.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We should send you Texas for 3 years to work.
Yeah.
Come back an evangelical.
I
can see Ragoobarsingh the Bible in his hand.
I'm very good at navigating religious discussions.
Yeah, but I find this a very, very interesting case.
Yeah.
That she had a self-induced abortion, and now she's facing, or she may have been charged, I think, with murder.
Crazy.
Yeah, she'd been charged with murder. So I mean, clearly the fetus is looked on as a human being whose life was taken against his or her will. And that's always and especially when men talking about it to her, because well, I mean, it's a woman's body, so that dynamic also plays in.
Yep.
So, never a down moment. 7:59. You sleepy there?
Nope.
Why are you all calling? Why are you also disrespectful?
Because we just generally by nature, we're irreverent by nature. Like you should know.
Me? I'm never.
You use right whole plays to throw stones at the state. Whole productions.
No, it's called
throw
humor.
stones at people.
It's called humor.
Yeah, that's the excuse. Humor. Oh my God.
It's called humor.
Comedians take so much license, sir. They could say anything they want because I'm a comedian. It's humor.
It's humor.
Yeah.
Our listener from LA who went to your play on Saturday or Sunday, and he says it was the best thing he's seen in a long time.
Oh, great!
Thanks told him
for that.
Yeah, so I told him you'll write a check to Naprima Bowl because I think he broke a chair.
Laughing. Specify laughing.
Yeah, I think he broke a chair.
If we said you broke a chair, it'd be for different reasons, but he broke a chair laughing.
Well, that was humor.
News is next.
That was humor, Paul. That was humor.
News is next.
Look at that. You take out the video. Sleepy.